more just your science profession and why you're here.
Sure, yeah. My name is Joe Higgins. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and I work for Cleveland Metro Parks there as a naturalist. And I'm here to stand up for what I think is the single most important issue facing us as a species, not only as a country and a nation, and that's for climate change and climate policy, for the betterment of not just mankind in this generation, but for future generations as well.
Right.
And that's why I'm here.
And so, what, as an environmental scientist, then you can see in your lifetime changes?
Oh yeah, you see them every day. I work in a urban park district, and we see every day, every year, more invasive species coming into our parks. More issues, living right on Lake Erie with the harmful algal blooms in the fall that are causing, for instance, the Toledo water crisis in 2014, where 500,000 people lost access to fresh water, which is unacceptable. And frankly, my in-laws live there, and they had to come and stay with me for the whole weekend. So I really want them to solve that problem.
Was that an algal bloom? Yes, that would be for many reasons. The algal bloom causes a toxin. What happened?
So what happened there is the Maumee River is the largest tributary in the entire Great Lakes system, and it runs through eastern Indiana and northwest Ohio into the western basin of Lake Erie. And that watershed is highly agricultural, a lot of corn and soy grown in that watershed. And in agricultural watersheds, phosphorus runoff causes something called eutrophication in the western basin, which is basically where there's so much nitrogen and phosphorus in excess that algae blooms, which is a natural occurrence. However, with those additional nutrients, it causes a specific type of algae called microcystis to bloom. And that includes a really powerful hepatotoxin or a liver toxin, which is inconsumable to people. So it shut down the whole city's water supply for several days. They didn't know when it was coming back, and it was quite frankly frightening for quite some time.
Right.
What a lot of people don't realize is that those algal blooms happen pretty much every single year. And the year in 2014 when it happened, that wasn't by concentration the largest concentration that there's been for the algal blooms, but it was kind of a perfect storm where a storm came in, concentrated that microcystis algae in the western basin and churned it throughout the water column, because typically it floats.
Right.
And the intake for Toledo is submerged about 8 feet below. And so that's why, even though they've had higher concentrations of blooms, they never had that issue before. But because this big storm concentrated the bloom in the western basin of the lake and suspended the algae throughout the water column, it wound up in their water intake, and their wastewater treatment plant is not...
they couldn't take it out.
Yeah, they couldn't. They were
and so
ill-equipped
if you drank that water, you could die.
Yeah, microcystis can be fatal. And certainly would ruin your weekend, even in small doses.
Right. You get very, very sick.
Yes.
So it's for reasons like this. And would, like the hotter summers, is this contributing to issues like this?
Absolutely, because Lake Erie is by volume by far the smallest of the Great Lakes. Even though 20% of the world's fresh water is in the Great Lakes, only 2% of that water is in Lake Erie. So relative to the other lakes, it's basically a river. But because it's so shallow and because water flows through it so readily, it's naturally the warmest and most nutrient-rich Great Lake. However, with climate change, as our climate continues to change, and that western basin continues to get even warmer, algae basically need three things to grow, especially that type of algae. Is they need obviously sunlight because they're photosynthetic. They need nutrients like they're getting from the fertilizer runoff, and they need warmth and heat. And so as our climate continues to change, not only will it put more pressure on the farmers to fertilize their crops because it's harder to get a successful yield, causing more nutrients in the western basin, but also as the temperature rises then in the western basin, it'll kind of compound the problem.
So we are creating the conditions to make these perfect storms for toxic algal blooms and other negative things more and more likely.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. The severe weather events that lead to these types of things. And you could see, too, that when you look at graphs for precipitation in the Maumee River watershed and graphs of phosphorus concentration in the Western Basin, years where there's more rain in that watershed, they have more phosphorus. And so you could see that it is directly linked between that rainfall, that increased rainfall, washing excess fertilizer off of farm fields and into the river and into the Western Basin. One thing I'd add, though, is that, a lot of folks will say, well, we need food. And of course we do. We need food to survive. We need food to support our population. There are practices out there that exist that allow farmers to operate in a more sustainable way. And those are the types of regulations that we need to protect, and that's why we're here to march.
And this is kind of really important. This is what is being under attack right now with this new administration. These regulations that are helping to prevent these sort of toxal algal blooms from occurring are being rolled back.
Yeah, so...
And people are not being educated as to why they're there in the first place.
Well, I think there's an access to education issue, and that's first and foremost. But there's also the issue where people don't choose to see the flip side of the coin, whereas, yes, we do need jobs. We need jobs, and we need jobs for blue-collar people. Yes, we need food, but there's other ways that we can do this that not only will be beneficial to public health, but beneficial in the long term to our economy, because it's those workers that can be retrained that to farm in a different way, or to be watershed stewards in their home watersheds to help protect our freshwater resources.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there is a path forward. We need to be creative, and we need to be better communicators, and we need to reach across the divide to the people that feel threatened by these regulations, threatened by the challenges we're facing, and say there is a place for you. You are not being abandoned. We can find jobs for you.
Absolutely.
We can do this together and save ourselves in the world.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that's kind of taken for granted, is that I think if you went to coal country and you asked those folks if they wanted a job or if they wanted a job in coal, first and foremost, they would say, we just want good jobs. It doesn't have to be in coal. It can be in other industries. It can be in sustainable industries. And they would be, and I think those folks know that they'd be better off for it. However, they're being shown a path where it's one way or the other. No regulation or total job choking regulation, where it doesn't have to be that way. There's a happy medium that exists, and that's why I think things like this and marching for things like this to try and expose those ideas and this collection of positivity and ideas are things that are essential to helping grow our economy and our nation.
So in a way, we got to mix our water column, our consciousness, and we need to show that there's a place for everyone, and there are sustainable ways to get there.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. We all have to share this planet, and we have to share it with each other, and it shares its resources every day with us, and we need to be appreciative and learn how to continue that relationship.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right, now my wet screen.